You know that moment when you finally explode after months of being the calm one? When your voice cracks and your hands shake because you've been swallowing your words for so long that they've turned into poison in your throat? Everyone around you steps back like you've lost your mind. They call it anger issues. They tell you to get help, to learn control, to be more mature. And you believe them. You apologize. You promise to do better. You shrink back into that suffocating silence. But here's what nobody tells you. Your anger isn't the problem. Your anger is the only part of you that still remembers what respect feels like. Every time you bite your tongue when someone dismisses you, every time you smile when you want to scream, every time you say it's fine, when your soul is screaming, it's not. You're not being mature. You're betraying yourself. And your nervous system knows it. That rage building in your chest? It's not a malfunction. It's your internal alarm system going off because your boundaries have been violated so many times that you've forgotten you're allowed to have them. You don't have anger issues. You have a respect problem. And the person disrespecting you most isn't the one who keeps crossing your lines. It's you, for not drawing them in the first place. What if I told you that your suppressed emotions aren't making you stronger? They're making you disappear. That every yes you give when you mean no is teaching the world that your voice doesn't matter? Your anger is trying to save you. It's the part of you that refuses to be erased. And it's time you listen to what it's been trying to tell you. Because when you finally understand the difference between healthy confrontation and emotional repression, when you learn to set psychological safety for yourself instead of waiting for others to give it to you, everything changes. You stop exploding because you stop accumulating. You stop being ignored because you stop whispering. You stop feeling guilty for taking up space because you finally understand that your inner fire isn't something to extinguish. It's something to honor. This isn't about becoming aggressive. This is about becoming authentic. And there's a world of difference between the two. So you've been told you have anger issues. You've probably Googled how to control my temper at 2 a.m., feeling like there's something fundamentally wrong with you. That burning in your chest when someone dismisses you? You've been taught to see it as a personal failing. But here's what's really happening. You don't have anger issues. You have boundary issues. And the world has convinced you that your natural response to disrespect is the problem. Carl Rogers spent decades studying what he called the false self, that version of you that smiles when you want to scream, that says, it's okay, when it's absolutely not. Every time you swallow your anger to keep the peace, you're feeding this false self and starving your authentic one. Think about it. When someone cuts in line, you feel that flash of irritation. When you stay late perfecting that proposal, send it at midnight, and watch your boss present it the next morning as my strategy while you sit there invisible. Your blood pressure doesn't just spike, your soul screams. Another situation, when someone interrupts you for the 5th time, something inside you wants to roar. These aren't character defects. They're your psyche recognizing injustice. Aaron Beck identified this perfectly in his work on cognitive distortions. He showed how we label our emotions instead of examining what triggered them. You think, I'm being too sensitive, instead of, this person is being disrespectful. You think, I need to calm down, instead of, I need to address this boundary violation. Even the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this. While he taught emotional regulation, he never said to eliminate anger entirely. He distinguished between destructive rage and righteous indignation. One destroys you, the other protects you. Your anger isn't a malfunction. It's a messenger. It's your internal alarm system screaming, this situation violates something important to you. When you pathologize that response, you're essentially telling yourself that your values don't matter. The guilt you feel after standing up for yourself, that's not your conscience. That's conditioning. You've been programmed to believe that your emotional boundaries are selfishness, that your need for respect is unreasonable, that your anger makes you difficult. But here's the brutal truth. Suppressed emotions don't make you a better person. They make you a resentful, bitter, small. They make you someone who's learned to betray themselves so consistently that self-betrayal feels like virtue. If you feel guilty for having anger, you're not the problem. What you were taught about anger is the problem. And recognizing this isn't just validation. It's the first step toward reclaiming the fierce, authentic part of yourself that refuses to be diminished. And this leads us to the heartbreaking truth. Your anger didn't disappear overnight. It was systematically trained out of you piece by piece until silence became your survival strategy. Let me take you back. Remember being 10 years old, watching your sibling break your favorite toy? And when you started crying, being told, "Stop being a baby. It's just a toy." Feel that confusion? That's where it started, learning that your pain didn't matter. You probably expressed it naturally. Maybe you protested, maybe you cried, maybe you got defiant. And what happened? You were told to calm down, to be good, to stop being difficult. John Bowlby's groundbreaking research on attachment revealed something devastating. Children learn to suppress their authentic responses to maintain connection with their caregivers. If expressing your needs or boundaries threatened that bond, your developing brain made a brutal calculation. It's safer to silence yourself than risk abandonment. This is where your emotional repression was born, not from weakness, but from a child's desperate wisdom. You learned that your anger made people uncomfortable, that your boundaries were inconvenient, that your voice was too much. So you swallowed it, again and again and again. Gabor Mate calls this trauma of the authentic self. Every time you chose connection over authenticity, every time you prioritized someone else's comfort over your own truth, you were committing what he describes as relational self-abandonment. You weren't just suppressing emotions, you were abandoning core parts of who you are. Feel that ache in your chest right now? That's grief. That's your adult self recognizing how much you sacrificed to be loved. How many times you made yourself smaller to fit into spaces that were never meant for your full presence. The saddest part, you got so good at this that you started doing it automatically. You learned to read rooms before entering them, to gauge moods before speaking, to swallow your words before they could cause problems. Your nervous system became hypervigilant to any sign that your authentic self might threaten your psychological safety. This is why setting boundaries feels so terrifying now. Your body remembers every time your voice was met with rejection, every time your needs were dismissed as selfish, every time your anger was treated like a character flaw instead of valuable information. You didn't choose to become someone who struggles with suppressed emotions. You adapted to survive in environments that couldn't handle your full humanity. And that adaptation, while brilliant at the time, is now suffocating the person you were meant to become. Each time you swallowed your voice, a part of you did die a little. But here's what nobody told you. Those parts aren't gone forever. They're just waiting for permission to come back to life. But here's what's happening in your brain that nobody talks about. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between being physically threatened and being emotionally dismissed. To your ancient wiring, disrespect feels like danger. Stanford neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has shown us something crucial about how our autonomic nervous system works. When someone interrupts you, dismisses your ideas, or violates your boundaries, your brain's threat detection system, the same one that kept your ancestors alive, fires up instantly. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles tense, stress hormones flood your bloodstream. This isn't you being too sensitive. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do: protect you from threats to your survival. And in the social world we live in, threats to your dignity, your voice, your respect, these register as survival threats. Lisa Feldman Barrett's revolutionary research on emotional construction reveals something even more profound. Your brain is constantly predicting what's going to happen next based on past experiences. If you've been ignored, dismissed, or invalidated repeatedly, your nervous system starts anticipating these threats everywhere. That knot in your stomach when you need to speak up, that's not anxiety. That's your body preparing for battle because it remembers every time your voice was met with rejection. That surge of heat when someone talks over you, that's your threat detection system screaming, "This person is trying to erase you." Your brain literally cannot distinguish between someone ignoring your input in a meeting and someone threatening your physical safety. Same alarm bells, same flood of chemicals, same urgent message: defend yourself or disappear. This is why suppressed emotions feel so physically exhausting. You're not just managing feelings, you're constantly overriding your nervous system's most fundamental programming. You're telling your brain, ignore the threat, when every fiber of your being is screaming, respond to the threat. And here's the devastating part. When you consistently ignore these internal alarms, your system starts malfunctioning. You either become hypervigilant, seeing threats everywhere, or you become numb, disconnected from the very signals designed to protect you. Your anger isn't a character flaw. It's your nervous system's last-ditch effort to get your attention, to make you understand that something important is being violated. When you pathologize this response, you're essentially telling your brain to stop protecting you. The urgency you feel right now, That's your system recognizing the truth. You've been living with a broken alarm system, and it's time to fix it before it breaks you completely. And this brings us to the most brutal truth of all. What you've been calling maturity is actually moral cowardice dressed up as virtue. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this coming over a century ago. He warned that passive morality, the kind that teaches you to turn the other cheek, to always be the bigger person, to swallow your truth for the sake of peace, isn't noble. It's what he called moral rot. It's the slow decay of your vital force, your will to exist authentically in the world. Think about it. You've been praised for being easygoing, for not causing drama, for being someone who goes with the flow. But what if going with the flow means drowning your own voice? What if avoiding drama means accepting disrespect as normal? What if being easygoing means being easy to ignore? Nietzsche understood that there's a difference between strength that chooses restraint and weakness that masquerades as virtue. When you suppress your anger not from wisdom but from fear, fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as difficult, you're not being mature. You're being what he called decadent. Jean-Paul Sartre took this even deeper with his concept of bad faith, the lies we tell ourselves to avoid the responsibility of authentic existence. Every time you say, "I don't mind," when you do mind, every time you claim it doesn't matter, when it absolutely does, you're living in bad faith. You're denying your own power to choose, your own right to have preferences, your own obligation to honor your authentic responses. The maturity you've been taught is just fear disguised as virtue. It's the fear of being too much, of taking up too much space, of having needs that might inconvenience others. But here's what nobody tells you. This kind of false maturity doesn't make you a better person. It makes you a smaller person. Real maturity isn't the absence of anger. It's the wisdom to know when your anger is justified, and the courage to express it constructively. It's understanding that your boundaries aren't suggestions, they're requirements. It's recognizing that your voice matters not because it's always right, but because it's authentically yours. You've been conditioned to see your assertiveness as aggression, your boundaries as selfishness, your authentic responses as character flaws. But what if the real character flaw is the willingness to betray yourself for the comfort of others? The indignation you're feeling right now? That's not immaturity. That's your authentic self waking up and refusing to stay silent anymore. Take a breath. Feel that shift happening inside you. That's not anger, that's awakening. But here's what nobody warns you about. Your body is keeping score of every time you chose silence over truth, and it's sending you the bill. That chronic tension in your shoulders? Those headaches that come out of nowhere? The exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix? Your body is literally storing every swallowed word, every suppressed boundary, every moment you chose fake peace over authentic expression. Bessel van der Kolk's groundbreaking research revealed something terrifying. Trauma isn't just stored in your mind. It lives in your tissues, your muscles, your nervous system. And emotional suppression? That's a form of ongoing trauma. Every time you force yourself to smile when you want to scream, you're creating what he calls somatic dysregulation. Your body doesn't understand the difference between physical and emotional threats. When you consistently override your natural responses to protect others' comfort, your nervous system stays in a constant state of hypervigilance. You're literally living in chronic stress, and your body is breaking down under the weight of all that unexpressed truth. Think about it. How many times have you said "I'm fine" when your jaw was clenched? How many times have you nodded along when your stomach was churning with disagreement? How many times have you laughed off disrespect when your heart was pounding with indignation? Susan David's research on emotional agility shows us the devastating cost of this emotional suppression. When you consistently deny your authentic emotional responses, you don't just lose touch with anger, you lose touch with all your emotions. You become emotionally numb, disconnected from the very signals that guide healthy decision-making. Your body is paying the price of every "it's okay" that wasn't okay. Every boundary violation you accepted is stored somewhere in your system, in your tight throat, your clenched fists, your shallow breathing, your racing heart. You've been carrying the physical weight of emotional dishonesty, and it's exhausting you from the inside out. The false peace you've been maintaining isn't peaceful at all. It's a war zone where your authentic self is constantly under attack by your compliant self, and your body is the battlefield. That knot in your stomach when you need to speak up but don't, that's not anxiety. That's your body begging you to honor what you really feel. Those moments when you feel like you can't breathe in certain situations? That's your system suffocating under the weight of suppressed truth. Your body has been trying to tell you something crucial. The price of keeping everyone else comfortable is making yourself sick, and it's time to stop paying that price. And this leads us to the distinction that changes everything. You can be fierce without being destructive. That's the difference nobody taught you. Here's the lie you've been living with, that there are only two options when someone crosses your boundaries: explode or stay silent. But there's a third way, and it's the most powerful one of all: assertive clarity. Brené Brown spent years studying what she calls fierce conversations. Moments when you speak your truth not to hurt someone, but to honor the relationship enough to be honest within it. This isn't about being nice or mean. It's about being real. And real doesn't require you to be cruel. Think about the difference. Aggression explodes. Are you kidding me? You always do this. Assertiveness stays calm. I wasn't finished. I'd like to complete my thought. Same boundary. Completely different energy. Aggression attacks the person. Assertiveness addresses the behavior. One destroys connection. The other creates healthy confrontation that actually strengthens relationships. Albert Ellis identified the irrational belief that's been sabotaging you. The idea that you must be either completely passive or completely aggressive. This black and white thinking keeps you trapped in a cycle where you suppress until you explode, then feel guilty for exploding, then suppress even more. But here's what healthy confrontation actually looks like. It's calm, it's direct, and it's non-negotiable. It's saying, that doesn't work for me, without explaining why it should work for them. It's setting boundaries without justifying why you deserve to have them. It's expressing your needs without apologizing for having them. The power in your voice doesn't come from volume. It comes from conviction. When you know your worth, you don't need to shout to be heard. When you respect your own boundaries, others feel that energy and respond accordingly. This is what psychological safety actually means. Creating an environment where your authentic self can exist without apology. Not where everyone agrees with you, but where your voice matters enough to be heard and considered. You've been afraid that standing up for yourself makes you difficult. But here's the truth. People who respect themselves are easier to be around, not harder. They're clear about their limits, honest about their needs, and they don't build resentment because they address issues directly. The fierceness you've been suppressing isn't meant to destroy. It's meant to protect what matters most to you. Your values, your dignity, your right to take up space in this world. You can be strong without being cruel. You can be direct without being destructive. You can honor your anger without letting it control you. That's not just emotional maturity, that's emotional mastery. But here's the breakthrough moment. Your anger is actually a compass. It points directly to where your boundaries have been violated, where your values have been compromised, where your authentic self is being suppressed. Viktor Frankl discovered something profound in the concentration camps. Meaning comes not from avoiding suffering, but from choosing how to respond to it. Your anger isn't meaningless emotion, it's meaningful information. It's your psyche's way of saying, this matters to you, and you need to pay attention. The recalibration starts with a simple shift. Instead of asking, why am I so angry? Start asking, what is my anger trying to protect? Instead of, how do I get rid of this feeling? Ask, what boundary is being violated here? Daniel Siegel's research on neuroplasticity shows us something hopeful. Your brain can literally rewire itself. Those neural pathways that automatically suppress your voice, they can be changed, but it requires what he calls mindful awareness, the ability to observe your internal responses without immediately judging them. Here's your new practice. When you feel that familiar surge of anger, pause. Don't suppress it. Don't act on it. Just notice it. Feel where it lives in your body. Is it heat in your chest? Tension in your jaw? Energy in your hands? This isn't anger management. This is anger intelligence. Your nervous system has been trained to see your own emotions as threats. Now you're going to retrain it to see them as allies. That knot in your stomach when someone dismisses you? That's not anxiety. That's your internal alarm system working perfectly. Honor it. Start small. The next time someone interrupts you, instead of swallowing your words, try this. I wasn't finished. Just those 3 words. I wasn't finished. Feel how different that sits in your body compared to swallowing your voice. That's the difference between self-respect and self-abandonment. Not aggressive, not apologetic, just factual. Feel how your body responds when you honor your own voice instead of abandoning it. Your anger has been trying to save you from disappearing. It's been the guardian of everything you're not willing to lose. Your dignity, your values, your right to exist authentically. When you start listening to it instead of silencing it, something remarkable happens. You stop accumulating resentment because you start addressing violations in real time. This isn't about becoming confrontational. This is about becoming congruent, aligning your external responses with your internal truth. When your actions match your values, when your voice reflects your authentic self, that's when you stop feeling like you're living someone else's life. Your anger isn't the enemy of your peace. It's the guardian of your integrity, and it's time to let it do its job. And this brings us to the moment that changes everything. The first time you honor your anger instead of apologizing for it. Picture this. Someone dismisses your idea in a meeting, but instead of that familiar sinking feeling, instead of swallowing your words and building resentment, you feel something different. You feel your anger rise, and for the first time, you don't fight it. You listen to it. It's telling you, this matters. You matter. Your contribution has value. And instead of silencing that voice, you speak, I'd like to finish my thought. Not aggressive, not apologetic, just true. Feel what happens in your body in that moment. Your shoulders straighten. Your breathing deepens. That chronic knot in your stomach starts to dissolve because you're finally aligned. Your external response matches your internal truth. This is what Carl Jung meant by individuation. Not becoming someone else, but becoming fully yourself. All the parts you've been hiding, all the strength you've been suppressing, all the fierce protection you've been denying, they're not flaws to fix. They're powers to integrate. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Your way of thinking about anger has been the prison. But when you start seeing it as information, as protection, as the part of you that refuses to be erased, that's when the prison door opens. You don't need to become louder. You need to become truer. When you speak from authentic conviction rather than accumulated resentment, something magnetic happens. People lean in instead of stepping back. They listen because they can feel the difference between someone who's attacking and someone who's simply refusing to disappear. Your nervous system starts to relax for the first time in years because it's no longer fighting a war on two fronts, protecting you from others while you betray yourself. Now it can do what it was designed to do, keep you safe while you stay authentic. The person who used to explode after months of silence, that wasn't your real self. That was your suppressed self, finally breaking through the walls you built. But now you have a third option, the integrated self who addresses violations in real time, who honors boundaries without cruelty, who protects what matters without destroying what doesn't. Your anger was never the problem. It was the solution trying to emerge. And now that you've learned to listen to it, to trust it, to express it with wisdom, you've reclaimed the most important thing of all, your right to exist fully in this world. Your anger was never the enemy. It was the guardian of everything you're not willing to lose. For too long, you've been told that your emotional boundaries are character flaws, that your need for respect is unreasonable, that your voice is too much. But now you know the truth. Your anger isn't evidence that you're broken. It's evidence that something inside you refuses to be diminished. You don't have anger issues, you have boundary issues. And the moment you start honoring those boundaries instead of apologizing for them, everything shifts. Your nervous system relaxes, your relationships improve, your self-respect returns. The knot in your stomach when someone dismisses you, that's not anxiety. That's your internal alarm system working perfectly. The surge of heat when someone talks over you, that's not a character flaw. That's your psyche recognizing that your voice matters. You've spent years suppressing the very emotion designed to protect your dignity. You've been taught to see your fierce protective instincts as problems to solve, instead of powers to integrate. But your anger isn't something to manage. It's something to understand, to honor, to express with wisdom. When you stop seeking permission to have feelings, when you stop justifying why you deserve respect, when you stop explaining why your boundaries matter, people start treating you differently because you're treating yourself differently. Your voice doesn't need to be loud to be heard. It needs to be true. And when you speak from authentic conviction, rather than accumulated resentment, the world finally listens. The fierce part of you that refuses to be erased isn't something to fix. It's something to celebrate, because that's the part of you that will never let you disappear again. Comment below. What boundary did you finally set this week? Share this with someone who needs permission to feel their feelings. Subscribe if you're ready to stop apologizing for existing. Because once you start honoring your voice, you'll discover that not everyone wants to hear it. And that's exactly when you need it most.